Hello and welcome. My name is Vladislav Novikov. My guest today is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Reports and local elected official in the state of Wisconsin. Yuri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The Kremlin's latest nonsense. Now they blame the US for blocking peace. Kate Kellogg, the US president envoy on Ukraine, called it a lie. Washington and Kiev aren't stopping talks. Is Putin risking it all by picking a fight with the US?
It seems that Putin has little to worry about these days when it comes to the U.S. because it's clear that United States, our president is most concerned about having good relations with Vladimir Putin. And if there is any indication that Russia is less interested in talks, it has mostly to do with the fact that it understands how little it has to fear from the White House these days. Because when reality requires Donald Trump to stare in its face, he responds in different ways. For instance, he now uses the new secret weapon. We have the F-bomb, which he dropped on Iran and Israel just a few days ago. And he doesn't mind dropping it on Ukraine, but he never drops it on Russia. And even 10% tariffs, which have never come to pass, I think is an indication of how little Kremlin has to worry about when it comes to White House these days. And I think it's unfortunate reality that many people hoped that, especially those speaking Russian, hoped that Trump was going to be better for Ukraine. But now they're facing decision of either remaining Trump supporters, as most of them are, or, supporting Ukraine, which many of them do. And so that is a tough situation where people find themselves, and I don't know to what extent Keith Kellogg can do anything to help. He hasn't been very helpful up till now. He's been mostly promoting different talking points from the White House as their policy keeps changing depending on what Kremlin wants. But clearly, the United States were never particularly interested in these negotiations simply because we have two negotiators for the two warring nations. When we have one negotiator to deal with Kiev, and that's Keith Kellogg, and then we have a different negotiator to deal with Russia, Steve Witkoff, Trump's golfing partner, then I can only wish that Trump's some other golfing partner was was a special envoy to Ukraine, because clearly playing golf with the president is the most crucial skill in foreign policy known to men in Trump and, Trump world now, which is why I understand that Finnish president that is a great golfer is in good relations with Trump because he respects that. Keith Kellogg, I don't know if he plays golf or not, but I know that Steve Witkoff does, and he's the one that's being sent to Russia. And Kellogg is the one who's being sent to Kiev, and he has no impact on policy, never really did. He was just a transmitter. And the fact that he may be flabbergasted now, well, he used to be a foreign policy advisor for Vice President Pence. And you know what happened to to that relationship between Trump and Pence. So I think that being surprised by anything that President Trump does or by anything that happens with the peace process that is difficult and challenging, makes the situation more difficult and challenging for Ukraine, it shouldn't be a surprise for Mr. Kellogg. This is the administration whose interests he's promoting. He is the stick, while Mr. Witkoff is the carrot, and that's the cake we got.
Yeah, and Putin now says Russia is ready for a third round of talks in Istanbul and promises to hand over 3,000 more bodies of fallen Ukrainian soldiers. Is he stalling negotiation by using these tragic humanitarian issues as a tool?
I think that, of course, he's using it as a tool because we know that strong people don't respect weak people because that makes them less strong, apparently. And when I hear about people who are no longer alive, that to me, I think in Trump code language signals more weakness. Look, and a reminder of how, this President Trump says every week they're losing thousands of young men. This is a reminder of that. So, in the sense, President Trump consistently has Kremlin narrative. This fits with the narrative of more bodies because this will lead to news stories covering how many people have died, promoting the idea that the war should be ended no matter what the cost. Because if you have any questions, look at these 3,000 amazing people who are no longer alive. And we know that Ukraine sends its best to war, and it's a tragedy every time. It's a 3,000 tragedies, or however many bodies there are, and it's going to be covered, and it should be discussed, and it should be talked about, but not in the way that Russia wants, because it's not going to I don't think it's going to make Ukrainians like Russia more or agree to peace with Russia quicker. I think that it just shows how brutal Russia is. And when we look at the fact that Russia is interested now in negotiations in Istanbul, in Turkey, well, I would be careful if I were them, because last time they showed up, there was Operation Spiderweb, where Ukrainian drones flew out of semi-trucks in Russia and destroyed Russian, a quarter, a third of Russian strategic aviation, rendering really Russia useless when it comes to part of the nuclear threat that it represents. Ukraine did it with drones right before the last time that they were supposed to negotiate. I can only imagine out of what suitcase what drone will fly out and who it might attack next. So Russians should be careful with those negotiations ideas. But nonetheless, they must want to show Donald Trump that they're interested in peace one way or another. And if that means that they have to send some people to Istanbul and sit at a table and show that they're interested in peace, then who cares if a few more planes get blown up or whatever else Ukrainian military might think of in the meantime. I mean, after the good relations with Trump, I think are definitely worth it, aren't they?
It's already been a month since the second round, and there is still no date for the third. When do you personally expect these talks to finally happen?
Really, on some hand, the easy answer is never. But to think about it a little bit more, depending on what happens on the field, on the battlefield. If Ukraine is in a difficult situation, like it was when Minsk I or Minsk II agreements were signed, that's one thing. Or if Russia is at a position where it feels that its collapse is imminent and its base of resources is dwindling and they're not able to war as what they do, because everybody crimes different, and the warring that Russia does if is unsustainable to Russia and to Vladimir Putin, or perhaps if Putin is no longer alive and whoever is after him would like to get this thing wrapped up because this is so destructive for the Russian Empire, which decided that it could have Ukraine, but it really can't, then that's when I would expect to see negotiations. But as long as we keep seeing what we're seeing right now, I think that Putin would be less inclined in negotiations and less inclined in peace treaties, especially after seeing how Iran that was attacked, but regime was not changed. And so when the 12-day war stopped, regime declared its victory, and they're now hunting Israeli spies, supposed Israeli spies in Iran. So that shows that regime in Iran continues to function on some level, and that means that military victory that does not lead lead to change of government, is going to lead to these kinds of celebrations. And in case of Ukraine, if there was a peace that was signed by Russia in Ukraine, even though, again, now we go back to, does Russia break every agreement that ever made? Of course. But this would be a cause for celebration in Ukraine, because if Ukraine preserves its statehood, preserves its leadership, that it remains pro-Ukrainian leadership, then I think that Ukraine is coming out of this very strong and very victorious, because Putin thought that he could have the whole country in 3 days. I think Putin and Kremlin regime is, or Russian regime, whatever you want to call it, is not interested in seeing those kind of scenes play out in Kiev or Lviv or all over Ukraine. And I think that's another reason why Putin would be less inclined or less interested in having negotiations with Ukraine. But if Putin was kind of going to different news story footage, how Gaddafi ended his days, if Putin was featured in one of those videos and it wasn't artificial intelligence, then I think Russia would be definitely much more interested in negotiations.
Putin says the third round will focus on memorandums and admits these documents are totally opposite in substance. So is this his plan? To talk forever about papers and keep the war going? And what about Trump? Is he really okay with that?
Well, as far as Trump is concerned, he already said that Russia and Ukraine are like two, kids in a park that need to fight it out. Yeah, he's washed his hands of any sort of responsibility or interest in helping Ukraine. And he's now waiting to see, because that's what happens when Donald Trump faces reality. He walks away. And he's saying that, you know what, you, Putin and Zelensky, Russia and Ukraine, you guys duke it out. When you're going to be ready, let me know, because I'd like to profiteer here a little bit or a lot. By the way, the United States just participated in a peace that was signed between Rwanda and Congo, I believe in Africa. And guess what? Rare minerals are part of what Trump is bragging about, that he is extracting from Rwanda. From Rwanda now. So rare minerals that Ukraine gave to Trump has shown him the way forward of this economic imperialism, right? Which people in Africa supposedly are not happy with, because you know what? That's what empires do, and they are not good for people of the country, because this is just extraction of resources without benefiting the people. So with all of this, what does this makes me think of? Budapest Memorandum. Because Budapest Memorandum was a key document that has recently, I've seen a reference. I'd like to see, let our commenters know, write in comments, because I've heard that Budapest Memorandum was scrubbed from Pentagon website, that is no longer even mentioned, that doesn't exist, like page 404, error 404. So if you are able to find a reference to Budapest Memorandum on official government website, please post link to it in the comments, because I think I'd love to at least know that it's still there, because we're certainly not acting like it exists. We act in the United States as if that document was never signed. But when you look at Donald Trump, who refuses to acknowledge responsibility for anything that was done before him and just blames his predecessor, that was under the old management. Well, Budapest Memorandum was under several old managements ago. And of course, Donald Trump is not going to claim responsibility for this. He can't even claim responsibility for the trade agreement that he signed with Canada and Mexico when he was president last time. So I think expecting him to maintain and to be a reliable partner for anybody is foolishness. I think this is a president that's interested in transactions, in deals, and in negotiations, and at the same time can be extremely indecisive when it comes to things like Russia. I think with that all in mind, I think that Ukraine's safety and security is guaranteed, first of all, by its own troops, and second of all, by its allies, which at this point are Europe and other countries around the world that are threatened by Russia and by Russian proxy states, including America sometimes, it feels like. I think that Donald Trump doesn't really care if there is war or not. He markets himself as a peace president, and the crown piece of this, the capstone of this, clearly is supposed to be the Nobel Peace Prize. But it's more about like a no balls peace prize that he is really aiming for, because he's showing that he's not able to kind of continue and do things for any extended period of time. But interestingly enough, that's exactly what his base wants, because his base is perfectly thrilled with what happened when the United States bombed Iran and then kind of like flew away, and that's it, and now we're done. No troops on the ground, nothing else. We just showed the might of the American, Air Forces, Army, everything, huge bomb, and we're out of there. That's what Trump base wants. That's not really. Now, is it possible that this could solve a problem with Russia, with a country like Russia? Well, it probably could. I mean, look at what Israel did with Iran, and with chances that Israel could do that with. If Israel could polish off Iran, then imagine what United States could do with Russia. But I'm afraid that imagining is all we have at this moment.
Financial Times put it, the war in Ukraine is turning worse for Kyiv. By fall, the situation at the front could get much darker without fresh Western weapons. That's according to the Financial Times. Could Trump really put the plug on US support for Ukraine?
Well, he effectively already has. More again, turning to real prospects for solutions, which is Europe and its commitment of spending, reaching that 5% goal, even though it is within 10 years. But it is really the ambition that we need for today's world. Because when Germany announces that it's going to build the biggest army in Europe, it would have been a little terrifying a few years ago. But now this seems like the right thing to do, the right solution for the problem that's facing us right now, because that's when people change, is when we realize that solutions that we've had before are no longer useful for the problems that are in front of us, that are bothering us. And if that doesn't work, then we have to come up with new solutions and make sure that they're practical, that they're not making situation worse. Trump is absolutely committed to dropping Ukraine. I think dropping Ukraine is a key part of his idea of selling NATO to Europeans, because you wouldn't want to happen to you what Putin is doing to Ukraine, would you? And so on that level, he can use Ukraine as an example of why everyone should quickly, we saw, those that pay attention, what happened at the last NATO summit, where Donald Trump was practically crowned as a daddy Trump. Of course, they also had the T-shirts, and all that crazy business. That's the mindset that Trump wants Europeans and NATO to have. And I think it is really important to make sure that people understand that Ukraine is really the key to European safety, that European safety rests not on United States, because United States under Trump is no guarantee of safety for anyone, including the United States, but Ukraine is the real guarantee of safety for Europe. But I think the Europeans are understanding it, because when they are raising their defense spending to 5%, and then they're saying that a lot of it is going to help Ukraine, and it's going to be part of their commitment to NATO, then I think that those people are getting it. They understand that Ukraine matters, and they're going to do what they can to help Ukraine. Now, it's crucial that the United States helps as well. And this is why it's important that senators and congressmen who are so terrified of Trump understand that we need to think about the United States and our own national security, and that means helping Ukraine. And if we have to talk about it in different platforms and keep bringing this topic up and bring this conversation up, then I think it's important to do so, in part because there is a part of Trump's base that is not happy with this treatment of Ukraine and with this really overly friendly treatment of Russia and Putin. There are many Republicans, I believe, who are unhappy with this, as well as obviously Democrats and many independents. So I think there's a story to be told, and we need to keep telling it.
Yuri, thank you so much for joining us. It was really appreciate to see you and hear your perspective. We truly appreciate your insight and analysis.
Thank you for asking me.